Hello everyone, my name is Jordan, and if you haven't heard about a free-to-play version of Dark and Darker, then let me introduce you to Greed is Good. It's uncannily similar to Dark and Darker, and even has the same monsters, classes, and loot containers, but surely the abilities are different, right?
Sounds like a lot of hoopla to make over a little Krabby Patty, right? Wrong!
So, today we are diving into the controversy and answering important questions like, what is this game? Who made it? How is it legal? And should you try it out? Now, we don't know a lot about where Greed is Good comes from. In fact, if you go onto Steam, it says it's developed and published by a previously unknown developer called The Fool Studio. If you're like me, you've never heard of this developer. So, I knew we needed to go deeper to find out who they really are. The only problem is, there isn't any information about them. A quick Google search reveals nothing, but Steam user Rye found out that the actual company name might be Flame Dragon Limited. But there is still no information about them, apart from a company directory in Hong Kong. I continued to investigate the Steam page and found a link to a YouTube channel. Here is their YouTube channel, complete with 4 videos from a month ago and 76 whole subscribers. What is even more strange is that although their YouTube only has less than 100 subs, the game has several thousand viewers on Twitch. All this wasn't making sense to me. How did anyone find out about this game? Who's really behind it, and why would they blatantly rip off Dark and Darker? I knew what I needed to do. I needed to download the game and try it out for myself to see what it was all about. So after requesting and getting immediate access to the game on Steam, I was in there, and if I'm being honest, the game experience was mixed. Some things are really clunky, like picking up loot, and some parts of the combat. And I get the feeling that the servers are not all that good. But in terms of things working when you click on them, and the game running well, and with good frames, it was decent. I noticed a nice feature that allows you to easily compare items that you pick up with your current gear. I couldn't for the life of me figure out how the utility slots worked. And there are still times where you get stuck on bits of environment and getting hit by mobs when you think that you shouldn't have. But all in all, it wasn't bad. Not great, but not terrible. One additional element that I really liked was the post-game screen that showed kills, assists, total loot value, and survival time. It even showed how much experience you gained from the match, which is honestly a huge quality of life feature that I wish Dark and Darker had. Now, I didn't really play enough to speak to the gear, weapon, or class balance, but from what I've heard, it's not perfect, and the assassin class is quite strong. Who would have guessed? The game also apparently features some monsters that we don't see in Dark and Darker, as well as more levels and different maps. In addition to differences in the gameplay, there are other useful things they offer, like a match history screen where you can see a record of your recent games and some stats about them. Instead of one central stash, they've broken it up into 3 separate stashes, and they offer additional stash upgrades purchasable for in-game currency. The merchants seemed about the same, but there was a rather interesting trading system. I haven't used it, but from looking at it, it seems like you can list items for sale and purchase items from others that have listed them as well. I would compare it to something more like RuneScape's Grand Exchange, where you don't have to be present for the trade. And finally, the high roller system is essentially the same, with their leaderboard recording wealth, escapes, kills, and boss kills. Honestly, the menu system was not that bad, and it felt a little bit like a mobile game or like League of Legends. Now that I had gotten my hands on the game and really experienced it, I can say that it feels very, very similar to Dark and Darker. It felt so weird playing a completely different game, but already knowing the keybinds for everything since they were exactly the same. I mean, even the attack patterns of the monsters were the same. So, with all this knowledge in me, I had to ask myself, who would do such a thing? Who would so blatantly copy a game like that? Who stands to gain from trying to take part of the player base away from Dark and Darker, or to attract people with the free-to-play option? Could this really be just some unknown developer working on their first game? But why would they make it so hard to find information on them unless it was secretly Nexon working to undermine Dark and Darker by offering a tempting free alternative? Or is Greed is Good really the game that Nexon was working on but scrapped before they saw how successful Dark and Darker was and ended up suing Iron Mace over it? And maybe a more important question is, would Nexon be within their legal rights to release their own previous concepts, even if they're so similar? I don't have all the answers here, but if I can take a moment to say something, all of you need to start thinking for yourselves. This world is full of people telling you how to think and what to believe, but it is so important for each of us to be able to think critically. Search for information, examine the evidence, try things out for yourself, and then make your own opinions about things. I see too many of you shouting at each other on the internet or in Discords or the forums about, oh, my team is better, my team is in the right, yada yada, so on and so forth. Don't be caught up in defending something just because you've gotten attached to it or invested time or money. That type of thinking in life will surely lead you to falling prey to sunk cost fallacy. Look it up. That being said, I personally think that at this point, it's too early to say who's copying who. But as consumers, I think it really doesn't matter too much. The legal stuff will get sorted out in court, and there isn't much we can do about it. I think that if you like something, then support it. I do hope that if anything, Greed is Good shows developers how important some game elements are to players, like post-game screens and match history logs. Competition is good for consumers because it means that everyone needs to try harder to make the best game possible. But, as one of my favorite childhood shows used to say,
but you don't have to take my word for it.
Personally, I'll keep on playing Dark and Darker as long as I'm having fun with it. I'll keep my eye on the Greed situation though, and make an update video if any new developments happen. But until then, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.